Hey, welcome to this week's episode of the Single Man Podcast. I'm your host, Carlton French, and this week we are joined by my good friend, Nathaniel Armen.
Stoked to be here. I was 14 years old, and my church does a mission trip to Tijuana, Mexico. And at the time for me, it was a really challenging season of life. My parents were navigating a separation. Being 14, this being my first time out of the country, I didn't really know how to cope. I felt alone. That never really stopped me from seeking out that wisdom. Trust is something that I believe we are all still learning. There were times when I just got overwhelmed with how difficult it was. I wish I would have taken a step back and trusted more in God's plan. We all have that negative voice in our head that tells you that you're weird, you're alone, insert whatever you want. You got to push past that. If you really want real authentic relationships, you got to be open. Whether it be for life or dating, nothing really happens from sitting on the couch.
Challenge yourself constantly.
You have to be a little bit patient.
I felt like I was in a hole looking up.
The whole idea is you have to become content in singleness.
I'd be lying if I said I haven't fired off some Instagram DMs.
The word dating is not mentioned in the Bible.
I dedicated my life at Tomorrow World to Jesus.
Welcome to the Single Man Podcast, where we delve into candid conversations with Christian men about their journey to faith, advice for their younger selves, and navigating dating. With a heart to reach men from all walks of life, dive into real stories of redemption, growth, and the hope found in following Jesus. I'm your host, Carlton French, a 29-year-old single Christian, and I'm excited for you to listen to this week's episode. Let's jump into it. Hey, welcome to this week's episode of the Single Man Podcast. I'm your host, Carlton French, and this week we are joined by my good friend, Nathaniel Armen.
Stoked to be here, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Nathaniel. I'm excited for the audience to hear a little bit about your story today and for you to share about how you're navigating life as a Christian man who is single.
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. So let me quickly introduce you, Nathaniel. So we've been friends for about 2 years now. Mm-hmm. Met through our men's Bible study on Monday nights here in Atlanta. And Nathaniel has been a great friend to me the last couple of years. Like, for real. He's been...
I appreciate that.
Yeah, somebody that has been in an accountability group with me and has helped me just learn more about like being vulnerable and sharing about our struggles and, you know, how to become better together. And so I am honored to have you on tonight and wanted to quickly tee up your background. So you're 27, single, like we talked about, Christian. You are from the San Francisco Bay Area, and then moved to Atlanta just the last couple of years for work. And your hobbies, you're training for
Olympic
triathlon now, which is wild.
Health is wealth, man. I'm excited to be doing it. I kind of started about 6 months ago. So did a half marathon on Thanksgiving, and I've always been somebody who wants to be taking care of my health. So I'm very excited to be biking, swimming, running.
Yeah.
And trying to go on as many hikes as possible.
Yeah. And a pickleball and spike ball beast as well.
I do dabble in both of those. I would like to think that I'm a beast, but I can definitely get humbled by a lot of people here in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah. Just nothing but great people here in Atlanta.
Like the one I'm looking at typically beats me in pickleball.
We haven't played in a while, though, so maybe you've gotten better.
Nope. Haven't played either.
Awesome, man. Well, how's the last week been going? What's kind of a high and a low you've been working through recently so the audience can get to know you a little bit better?
Yeah. Honestly, it's been one of the best weeks of the year so far. I was thinking about this question earlier today and couldn't really come up with any lows this past week or really this season of life.
That's great.
I'd say a high is, although we're in Atlanta right now, it feels like I'm in Santa Barbara or San Luis Obispo. The weather has been absolutely beautiful the past week. And so being able to be outside as much as possible and really just soak in some good workouts, and also been able to help out a lot of elderly individuals this past week, whether it be gardening, landscaping, or whatnot. So really, it just warms my heart being able to wake up to blue skies every single morning.
Yeah.
Absolute
Love that.
high.
No lows at all.
No lows.
Wow. That's great, man. So you grew up in California, Nathaniel. How was that, your upbringing? And did you grow up in church? How did you come to know Jesus?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Bay Area, like you said, northeast of Oakland, in a pretty affluent neighborhood. And I grew up in the church. Beyond that, I was pretty active with a lot of sports, whether it be football, baseball, basketball. Did wrestling in high school as well. Was also in Boy Scouts. And for me, I didn't really make my faith my own or really begin to grasp the importance of it until I was in high school. I would say at the time I was 14 years old, and my church does a mission trip to Tijuana, Mexico every spring break to go kind of build homes for impoverished families. And at the time for me, it was a really challenging season of life. Like my parents were navigating a separation, and being the oldest, being 14, this being my first time out of the country, I didn't really know how to cope or what to think. And that trip really came at the perfect time. But it was more importantly the opportunity to serve and really take eyes completely off myself and really kind of, for one, be vulnerable with church community about what was going on in my own life, but also really being able to see how we as Christians can just touch the lives of others when we remove ourselves from the equation. And that trip alone, started to really kind of give me a glimpse into what walking with Jesus really looks like. And like a lot of high school students or people who, go to camp or go on mission trips, kind of get that camp high. But man, just the opportunity to serve, and there's just so much joy that was present in that week. It really kind of had me hooked.
Yeah. So at that camp, did someone explain to you about Jesus, or you just kind of saw it lived out in a way?
I really saw it lived out. Now, yes, there were a lot of sermons and a lot of people were giving testimonies, and during lunch would be very intentional conversations that we would be getting into. For me, it was more so really seeing Jesus through other individuals and seeing that lived out, and just the abundance of an outpouring of love and service and care for one another to serve the kingdom is really how back then at 14, but also until this day right now, is how I really see God at work. It's always been through other Christians.
Okay. That's awesome, man. So at 14, you were saved, you would say? You actually believed in Jesus after that trip?
For me, I will always distinctly remember on the bus ride home from Tijuana back to the Bay Area, and I was just kind of in this moment of prayer overlooking the sunset, and was really just kind of reflecting on this past week and the hardships that were going on at the home, but also the joy that we had all just experienced. And for me, it just gave me a moment to kind of pray and really accept Jesus and say, hey man, I don't know what I'm walking into, but I, after this week, am so confident that there is a God and am compelled to be following you, Now, candidly, I don't know what that looks like. However, I'm all in.
So you get back home from the trip and your parents are going through their separation, you're finishing high school into college. Things just been smooth sailing, or how did you navigate that all with now this belief in Jesus?
No, it was really tough throughout high school. I mean, it was an extensive divorce process, and I really kind of felt, to some extent, alone when I immediately came back from that mission trip. And for me, an absolute God thing, I recognized the importance of mentorship, and that maybe in that season of life, my mother as well as my father weren't particularly there or able to be motherly and fatherly figures as they were navigating the divorce. And so that never really stopped me from seeking out that wisdom and that counsel from other godly women and godly men within the church. And that's really when I started to surround myself around older fatherly figures. But I would be lying if I said that it's been easy since. I wouldn't change it at all. I think it's really shaped me who I am today. I've been able to, whether it's go on 10 mission trips or be a camp counselor, with that, I mean, I think I've gotten a huge heart, though, for younger students and students who really come from a challenging background. And so beyond that, in college was able to serve in the juvenile halls through Young Life in San Luis Obispo, and then since coming to Atlanta, have served with kids in the inner cities. And so really utilizing what I experienced to hopefully equip kids to continue to press forward, but also press into their faith. Yeah. Because I know the challenges that it can be, especially when growing up, and divorce is so present in today's culture.
Right. Let's say there's a guy listening, he's single, maybe he's Christian, maybe he's not, and he's going through a hardship in life now, a challenge that just feels insurmountable, and he's not sure how could a good God have him go through this. What advice would you give that guy?
That's a really good question. I'd say a couple things come to mind. James 1. Read James 1 through 18. Beyond that, I would pick up the phone and call somebody. Preferably, would love for it to be a Christian individual. But something that God has really blessed me with is not going through things alone. And no matter how challenging the circumstances that I've experienced, He's always given me the courage to call up friends and really kind of be vulnerable and share what was going through my mind with others. And so I would really encourage that individual to know that you're not going through it alone, and to pick up the phone and call somebody, because there's nothing worse than being in your own thoughts and feeling like you're alone.
Right. That's great. Yeah, I think that's how I first started to kind of experience healing in my life was, okay, I'd been living this way for so long, and I started to open up to people about how I'd been living, but it really took someone opening up to me first to then feel comfortable to do that. And so I'm really grateful for guys like you that have been in my life that have kind of showed me that you can be vulnerable, and it's not cowardly to say that you need some help or you're going through a hard time.
No, that's what I've learned through a lot of hardship is there's power in vulnerability. And so no matter how tough I think that I am or any man is in society with being masculine. It's really, there's the most power in opening up and being as vulnerable as possible. And what I've also found is, as you alluded to, it allows people to open up, but actually the judgment that you think that you will receive typically don't.
Yeah.
And it's received with a lot of grace. And so that's also taught me a lot about what grace looks like and how to receive grace, but also give grace to others.
Right. I feel like that's one of the schemes of the enemy. Like, oh, if you talk about this, you're going to be like this weirdo. You're going to be this outsider. Everyone's going to think you're crazy. But then when you actually start talking about it, it's like, okay, like other people are going through this too. And they're like, seem to really care or like want to listen.
Yeah. We all have that negative voice in our head that tells you that you're weird or you're alone or that you can't do something or that you should never share or nobody will ever love you. Insert whatever you want. We all have that negative voice.
Right.
However, for me, it's really recognizing that you got to push past that. And if you really want real, authentic relationships, you got to be open and vulnerable. And there's been a handful of times where I've called up friends that are Christian males and have been just sobbing on the phone with them, not really knowing what to say, not really knowing how to behave, but just needing somebody to sob with and to cry with. And so, I would, would never for my worst enemy have anybody give in to those negative thoughts, because we all have them. And like you said, when you get it out in the open, you realize that pretty much everybody else has those thoughts or has had those thoughts.
Right. Yeah. It has me thinking about the story of Jesus and Lazarus, one of his best friends, basically, who passed away, and Jesus knew that he was going to be able to raise him back to life. But he still, when he found out, wept with everyone else who was crying because he died. So just has me thinking, when you're going through a hard time, you're going through a tough place, that Jesus is there with you and he's supporting you through that.
Yeah. And that's honestly a great reminder to me too. Because sometimes I might just want to be talking to my friends and be quick to give them a call rather than going directly to Jesus first.
Let's say you were in a situation, Nathaniel, where you were able to talk to your younger self. So you've been following Jesus since you were 14. It's almost been 14 years later now. Like, let's say you could go back and talk to a younger version of yourself. Any wisdom you would give him or advice to get him through some of those hard times?
Yeah. And it's honestly a reminder to my current self, and something that I try to remind myself of, whether it be dating or in seasons of hardship that are apart from dating, is stop worrying. It's not going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
In fact, it's going to take away from the present situation. And I can be an individual who worries and is just thinking. And to really let it go. Whatever that hardship is, to just kind of open up my hands, open up like my fists, and just give it to God. That is something that one of my mentors has always said is trust and obey. And for me, trust is something that I believe we are all still learning, but trust has definitely been hard to come by, especially when I was newer in my faith, even into college.
Yeah.
And so to really kind of trust in God's plan, because I look back and there are so many seasons where I was working so hard multiple jobs, trying to put myself through school, bouncing around the Bay Area, really just trying to make ends meet. And there were times when I just got overly frustrated and overwhelmed with how difficult it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish I would have taken a step back and trusted more in God's plan, because a lot of times I can be guilty of trying to rely on my own strength. And that was definitely apparent when I was putting myself through school. I was doing all these things.
Right.
And I was trying to rely on my own strength. And there were so many times, whether it was like my car broke down or, I was transferring to schools and I didn't know where I was going to live, or I was bouncing on the Bay Area, that I just had to make it day to day. And then I'd get frustrated and overwhelmed. And I'd be like, why is this happening? But I was relying on my own plan rather than letting God continue to work through me.
Yeah. That's like one of the verses from the Sermon on the Mount that Jesus gave, where he's talking about, don't worry about tomorrow. Today has enough trouble of its own. Tomorrow will take care of it itself. And I'm just, something that I've even been working through this year myself is like, work's been busy, doing the podcast, family stuff, friend stuff, church stuff. There's so much going on, I feel like. And I can get in this mindset of, how am I going to make it all happen? Where I just need to focus on today, and God will take care of tomorrow. I don't need to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow.
I'm on the same boat. And what I've also kind of been thinking about that recently is that's an evolving process.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process. Like, I don't think there's going to be one moment, maybe there is, where I'm just like, done. Done in that mindset, like done worrying. And it's like an evolving process, kind of like a relationship. It's an evolving relationship. And so I've definitely grown in a lot of those areas, but I'd be lying if I said that I don't worry today.
Right. So you touched a little bit on relationships and dating, Nathaniel. How's that been since following Jesus, and what's dating like now for you as a single man who's 27 living in Atlanta?
Yeah. So as I reflect back, I've dated 4 women, I believe. And first was 16, 17, a junior in high school. And I was very ill-equipped and immature within the relationship. One, it got physical. So I did not do a good job leading on that front. But 2, there were several moments when I was honestly rude and talked down to my girlfriend and really hurt her. And I didn't really understand the severity of it. It wasn't the most edifying home that I was raised in, but that doesn't mean that I need to treat women like that. And really from that experience, but also as I've grown in my faith and had more mentors, I've really been able to learn about the importance of treating women really well. And within the other 3 relationships, have really sought out to do a 180 turn and really serve those women and try to put, as best as I can, and I'm not perfect, try to put them before myself. I can be a very passionate individual and somebody that, like really wants to serve others. And so really trying to use my words and my behavior to really uplift women as much as possible. As far as me right now, I've been on 20, 25 dates since coming to Atlanta. I believe the older I've gotten, I'm not sure if this is the case for you.
Yeah.
I've gotten more so picky in characteristics and qualities that I'm looking in a future wife. And as I have said, is I've stopped really worrying as much about that process. And so really trying to continue to work on me, to work on myself and put myself out there and really have that trust that, you know, when the time is right, that I will meet her.
Right.
There's not really, for me, I've never really kind of believed in there's only one fish in the sea.
Like a soulmate kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just for me. I've never really believed in that. But I also know if I'm just seeking after it and it's constantly on my mind, well, then it's more than likely not going to happen. Some mentors who are 50 and above. So I balance it through having very honest and vulnerable conversations with them. And I've also been able to kind of balance it through prayer and journaling, and also talking to my support group of friends, whether it be people, you know, in my current Bible study, or really good friends that I have been able to honestly just ask a lot of questions. And I think for me, that's really helped is when I put on a place of curiosity and learn, and I seek to understand, and I ask questions on what do healthy relationships look like? What should I be looking for in a future wife? That's been great for me as I've now navigated that balance, because I'm able to learn rather than just like continuing to vent.
Yeah. That's great. So you said you've been on 20 or so dates in the last year or two since you've moved to Atlanta. What's been one of the biggest learnings that you've had from those 20 dates for single guys listening that maybe are going on dates themselves? What advice would you have for them from the 20 that you've been on?
Yeah, for me, I would say rejection is honestly good for the heart. And
yeah,
I think a lot of us in society have this like love story where it just all kumbaya, come together, and it's just perfect. That's just not the reality of life or of dating.
Yeah.
And so really what I've been able to learn is to continue just to put myself out there and to be like unapologetically myself, but also from like every date, learn.
Right.
Learn like, hey, what did I like? What are areas of what did I not like? What are areas of improvements? How can I better learn about her values? Or what other questions can I be asking so that she can open up more? So that's something that's kind of big for me, is to not get discouraged and to keep going on dates and trusting that there is going to be a wife one day.
Right.
But it's not this snap of a finger. It all just comes together in like some love potion.
Right. It sounds like that, right? That's kind of the Hollywood narrative almost. Like, oh, I'm just going to be losing my slipper and the prince comes and brings it to me, or we're just going to meet, you know, at this happenstance time. And, oh, it must have been this like love story that was just being written all along. And you and me, like we're both in the middle of being single, and okay, we don't have that story to talk about, right? So it can be a tension to manage and balance. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's going to help a lot of guys out there.
Yeah. And that's something, whether it be for life or even just dating, is nothing really happens from sitting on the couch. You know, I see a lot of Christians at times will just kind of pray about something and really kind of sit back and wait for it to happen rather than acting in faith and still kind of getting after it.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm always kind of reminding myself. And I've never really been somebody to sit back and let things happen, but also to kind of walk with conviction and to keep moving forward.
So what does that even mean, be a Christian? I feel like that's so generic or not well defined these days.
It's a great follow-up. Yeah, it's a very loosely used term. For me, being a Christian is having a daily relationship with God. So being in the Word, having an existing and ongoing prayer life, being involved within your church community, being mentored and poured into, and looking for ways to really serve others and shine God's light rather than your own light. Beyond that, though, I would also say, it's different for every individual to define the characteristics that they are looking for. And what I have done is really define like, okay, what is important for me? And for me, growing up with sports and athletics, like that is something that I would love to be doing with my wife.
Yeah.
Playing recreational sports. Also being an Eagle Scout, like I would like to really have a wife that is outdoorsy and that like I can go on backpacking trips with and go hiking with and really enjoy a lot of sunsets.
Yeah.
Furthermore, some other things they have to be mentored by somebody. I think that speaks volumes to any woman or man that they are willing and wanting to be poured into and continue to grow as an individual, but also grow in their faith. And so those are just a few characteristics or qualities that I'm definitely looking for.
You talked about mentorship a lot, which I think is something that's great and something that I've been fortunate to find some mentors myself in the last year and had been praying for mentorship specifically because I didn't have any mentors. But let's say some guys listening doesn't have any mentors, doesn't have any leadership in his life, doesn't even really know where to start if we're being honest. What maybe should he be looking for? How should he go about that process?
Yeah. Well, first of all, mentorship is huge. I would not be the person I am today without the mentors that I've been blessed to have in my life. I usually say that I'm a mere product of the people that have poured into me. And if I were that individual that is really kind of seeking out wisdom or a mentor for the first time, and let's say I'm single, what I would be looking for is somebody within the church that is a male, that is a season or two ahead of you, that you really admire, and that has a healthy relationship, and that they also have healthy emotional boundaries, and really also, let's say if you're in business or you're in sales, and then they're also in sales. So that's how I've tried to really align my mentors is look for individuals that are a season or two ahead of me. Because I'm not really going to learn as much about how to treat women from a single Christian male as I would from a 45-year-old Christian male who's been married for 20 years. They're going to have a lot more experience. So I've always tried to look for people that are 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 steps ahead of me. And really, it all starts with just grabbing coffee and putting yourself out there.
Just ask, hey, we'd love to grab a coffee with you and learn about your story or what you do now, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I have done is really just being like, hey, Carlton, man, I really admire you. And I have heard a lot of great things about you. Candidly, I also am in sales, and I know that you're a sales leader and you love Jesus and you have been married for XYZ amount of years. Right now, man, I would love to just grab coffee with you. You know, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I am in a season where I feel like I'm getting called to get mentored and poured into. But like I said, like, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. Like, I would love to just grab coffee and, you know, hear more about your story, and maybe I can share mine. And if that's like a good fit, then maybe we can come up with a game plan after that.
Yeah, that's great. And that's been successful when you've done it in the past?
Yeah. I mean, I've been, as I said, really blessed. One of the greatest pieces of advice that I've received is have a board of directors, like your own personal board of directors. And so that's something from early on within my, you know, parents' divorce, or really kind of that advice started in the beginning of college, is, you know, having 4 to 5 mentors that I really look up to, that I can share life with and gain that wisdom from. And I mean, as I look back, you know, that has started through different classes that I've taken in school or in the gym, or that has started with one of them on the mission trip. One of them is my uncle. So
Yeah.
it's really kind of just having your eyes open and looking at other men that are kind of in your life, that are living out a healthy relationship, and really putting yourself out there. You'd be surprised. I think it's, you know, not here to talk about sales, but people are just afraid to put themselves out there or ask a question. More times than not, people are going to likely take you up on coffee. Like, I've never been rejected
Yeah.
from asking somebody 5, 10, 15 years older to coffee. Nobody's ever said no.
Wow. Love the wisdom on mentorship, Nathaniel. I think that's going to help a lot of guys out there who don't have mentors themselves, and just being bold and putting yourself out there, you know, asking somebody, worst that they can say is no, right?
Yeah. And like I said, you'd be surprised. 9 times out of 10, they're going to say yes.
Yeah. Even as it relates to dating, you know, just being bold and going and asking that girl out, or if there's someone that you're interested in, worst thing that she can say is no.
Yeah. And what you're going to realize is that you're going to go to sleep. You're going to take a deep breath, and you're going to wake up tomorrow with a job, still going to be Christian. Your heart's going to be beating, and you're going to be healthy.
Yeah.
The only thing that has really changed is that somebody said no to you.
Right.
And that's it.
So like push the pressure release valve. Doesn't have to be this
It's
big
not.
thing.
Yeah, it's never really, and that's even for me too. It's never really the end of the world. You know, we have a tendency to make things bigger than they actually seem or than they appear, and feel like all the walls are caving in. When more times than not, that's really not the case. And what may have happened in this situation is a girl that you were interested in said no.
Yeah.
The world's not ending.
Yeah.
You'll move on.
Right. Any regrets as we're kind of wrapping things up, Nathaniel, with how you've dated in the past, and lessons that you would want to give the single guys that are listening?
Yeah. Something that I alluded to was pushing physical boundaries with my first relationship when I was 16, 17, still virgin to this day. That's something I've been very headstrong on, and not willing to kind of give in to any temptation. Regardless, though, I have done everything but sex. And as I've definitely matured in my faith, have also understood that things like oral is definitely a different form of sex. But that is something that I do regret, because that, to me, is not God honoring, and not how women should be treated in a dating capacity. And so really having stricter boundaries, and also more accountability on that front when it comes to dating.
Yeah.
Is something that I definitely regret. Luckily, have learned from, and that is something that I am really big on to this day. Is having a lot of boundaries kind of in place and really knowing yourself so that you're not kind of recreating those environments.
Yeah. So last thing, Nathaniel, and we'll wrap up with this. Let's say someone's been listening this whole episode. Okay, it's not guy Nathaniel, cool story, grew up in California, been following Jesus, since he was 14, gone through some hardships, but he's still alive, right? 27, still making it through, and content being single. What do you want someone listening to go back to their Friday? Okay, maybe they're going out tonight with some friends or going back to work after listening to this episode. What's one thing you want them to maybe open up their phone, put in their notes app, or make a reminder? Okay, like that was actually, something to take away from that conversation with Nathaniel I listened to.
Yeah, for me, it would be that you really can't do it alone, and that we were all made for community, and if you really want to be in a relationship, for me, it's really seek out that wisdom and learn from those that are in the healthy relationships as much as possible, and really kind of put on a curious hat, because a lot of us are reactionary. But if you're learning as much as possible from healthy couples that you admire, and you're gaining as much wisdom as possible, well then, I'm no genie, but to me, you're in a much better position to one day eventually serve that woman.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on, Nathaniel. I think single men listening are going to be really encouraged by your story and your vulnerability. And, we don't all have it figured out, right? Both you and I were both still single and doing our best, being content, trying to follow what we feel like the Lord's calling us to do. And I'm sure it's going to resonate well with single men listening.
Yeah, and that is my hope. And for me, it's really having the perspective that the world gets a lot easier when you recognize that people don't have it all together. And that a lot of the things that I even talked about today, I'm still learning.
Right.
And I'm still being reminded of. And it's a continuous evolving process of growing and in my faith as a single man. And also, as I said, like having that trust in God and his plan for my life. Yeah.
Amazing, man. So grateful for you. Thank you for coming on. Grateful for your friendship, and hope it encouraged you listening. If you think Nathaniel's story would resonate well with a friend of yours, or maybe there's a mentor or a leader in your life that that you haven't been able to have that conversation with, ask them to coffee, send them this podcast, say, hey, I heard from this guy Nathaniel about being a mentor, and maybe we could have coffee and sit down and talk about your story, and love to learn from you. I think this would be a great way to do that. So appreciate you tuning in. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday. We'll be back next week for a new episode. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Single Man Podcast. If someone you know would benefit from this week's episode, I'd love for you to text them the link and invite them to listen. You never know how a simple invitation could change someone's life. We'll be back next Friday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific with a new episode. Until then, check out the video version of the podcast on YouTube, and you can engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.